Welcome to Warehouse Automation Matters. I'm your host, Mary Hart, and I'm here with Adam Lawicki, VP of Strategy at Scale 3PL, to discuss EverPeak in the 3PL perspective. Adam, welcome to Warehouse Automation Matters. How about you tell us a bit about Scale 3PL and the role you play there?
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, it's great to be here. So, Scale 3PL is the first fulfillment partner that we've specifically built for lifestyle, e-commerce, wholesale brands. These are the kinds of brands that live and sell apparel, cosmetics, headwear, footwear, accessories in these fast-moving categories. Our West Coast fulfillment centers sit right next to North America's most popular ports, Long Beach and Los Angeles. So for our brands, that means that their products spend less time on trucks and transportation and more time getting into the hands of their customers. We're owner operated. That means that the decisions that are made here are done by experts with real time engagement with our clients, not by folks in a boardroom. All of this lets us move faster, solve problems in real time, and deliver the experience that a lot of 3PLs just talk about. My role here, it's really simple. It's to make fulfillment as effortless for our clients and as sustainable for our team as we possibly can. I found that when we do those two things, growth just takes care of itself and people have a really great time along the way.
So, from your perspective, what are the biggest pressures and fears that brands, retail, otherwise, and by extension, their fulfillment partners face?
This is a big deal. So in this industry, e-commerce keeps growing every single year. Packages continue to pile up. So when we look at the global network of retail, it's about $6 trillion as of last year. And that's globally. In the US, we see about 22 to 23 billion packages shipped every single year. And this isn't a seasonal spike anymore. This is a new baseline. Operations, the entire supply chain needs to catch up or they're going to get left behind. So from our perspective, what we're seeing in the market is two or three things. So this volume that I'm talking about, it's unrelenting. It will not give up. It'll only grow. So, and in fact, we see it as compounding growth. It's really like a parcel fire hose. So with 22 to 23 billion packages last year, it's going to continue to rise. So capacity around the country and the world and the accuracy that we operate, it has to catch up. And so this is a term that we coined and call EverPeak. So year round, we're seeing promotions and drops and influencer marketing events and whatnot. So July for us now looks like November historically did. May, I mean, any other month in the year looks very similar to traditionally warehouses would call, that's our peak volume. And then the third thing is, of course, margin pressure, from operations to the brands themselves. If you're not taking steps to capitalize on operational efficiencies that can keep margins internal and not waste on preventable expenses. So for example, if you're not rate shopping in your operation with the actual DIMs, physical weight, and then the destination, you're leaking cash every time you print a label. And so for those three reasons, operators need to catch up or they'll get left behind.
So you talked about those pressures and fears, and you talked about the accuracy. Are those the table stakes that you think of that every 3PL has to deliver on today?
Certainly, yes. Now, in this environment that we operate in, everybody has to ship, same day SLAs for e-commerce orders, and we need to have scan validation everywhere. The package weights and DIMs have to be accurate for that rate shop to actually work for us to save on those expenses. So we also need environments where exceptions are visible to the client. We need clean integrations. We need software automations that handle what otherwise would be a manual process or barrier or friction. And if you're not doing any of that, if you're not doing anything like that, and you're missing those critical pieces, you're just buying rework and you're buying support tickets. It's not a good investment in growing your operation.
So you talked about EverPeak and how there isn't a peak season anymore. It's just year round. So what does that mean for customers and 3PLs alike that are trying to keep up with those social sales, influencer posts that drive up the inventory need. Is it even possible to keep up with those through manual processes?
Well, what we're seeing is brands no longer want to wait for November to have sales, right? Brands want to be able to provide products to their customers at any time of the year. And so how do they do that? We're seeing brands that work with collabs, other brands, creators, getting more intelligent with how quickly they restock their in-demand inventory. So there's innovation happening everywhere, from factories domestically and internationally, from supply chain providers like Scale 3PL, carriers, local delivery. So across the entire supply chain is massive innovation. And it's to support the demand that we're seeing. So the traffic that we're seeing is in the tens of billions every single day. And so as a percentage of the tens of billions of visits and traffic online, there's a percentage of that that converts into a shopping cart and then a sale, and then that's an order that we ship. Uh, if you're not automating, you're going to be left behind. Manual wins on day one, perhaps, but it's going to lose by day 10, by day 20, right? So you need automation, software and mechanically, that can flex hourly, every single hour of every single day.
So how has automation helped Scale 3PL not just meet the demand for those social sales, the ever peak, but to scale up in a sustainable way?
So for Scale 3PL, the biggest risk that we saw was not keeping up with the demand. We can keep up with the demand. We can put in automations. We have great software integrations. We have incredible people that work here. And so for Scale 3PL, we wanted to automate what we would call like the standard work, the table stakes. So we needed to make sure that orders shipped just every single day in the time that they were supposed to ship, lowest at an economical rate, so the lowest cost to our brands. And we wanted an environment that allowed our people to focus on the exceptions. There were multiple induction points in our process that we introduced automations in. So from automated picking, so robotics going out, like with our Locust fleet, to go pick the orders accurately and very quickly with less strain on our team. So these are robots that are self-guided, that they don't bump into anything. They go to exactly where they need to go very quickly, so faster than the average pace of a human jogging. So they're booking it. And once they get there, it's extremely easy to see what we need to do. So the picking robots will tell us, retrieve this item and place it in this tote. And then once work is complete, it will navigate on its own back to a packing station. And then from there, another one of our team members will take those items, and then we will feed them into an auto bagger machine it's basically a magic box that we put inventory in, and then it outputs a packed order with a shipping label. It's been scanned and rate shopped. And so for us, all of these things that we put into place for our team allows the core portion of the operation to just be on autopilot. So when exceptions occur, things fall out of the bucket, our team is able to respond and turn those into experiences that we can deliver a better experience for our client than traditionally 3PLs would ignore and say, yeah, we're doing 99%, great job. And of course, there's this 1% sliver that's not doing great. That's not a great answer to give to your customer. A good answer to give to your customer is like, we care about that 1%. Because oftentimes the most important parts of a business is how we can flex and provide a great experience for things that fall out of the bucket. That's what makes a good partner. And so at Scale 3PL, we do that every day.
When we were talking earlier, you mentioned that training is easy for your team members and that even your son has been able to pick it up, learning using a Locust bot very quickly. Tell me a little bit about how training went.
Well, with any partner, with any solution that we provide, it needs to have little to no friction. Otherwise, we're going to have folks that don't want to use whatever solution we put into place. And I love the example that you just gave. Company holiday party. I had one of my kids actually operating some of the equipment with me there in a safe manner and in a training. And it's extremely easy to use and takes about anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes total to train. So, these are solutions a 7-year-old could use and be trained, and these are solutions that I could use, that you could use. And one of my favorite things about our tech stack is that everything that we've introduced is very intuitive. And so in many ways, there's a lot of areas we don't even need to provide training because of the natural flow of how our operation's been designed. So that's from the systems that our team logs into and uses daily, graphics, visuals, navigation, flows out there on the warehouse floor. Everything is very intuitive and feels natural. Why does that matter? That matters tremendously because if our team has less friction, they can do their work easier, and focus on those exceptions that I mentioned earlier.
So when you were looking for an automation solution, what were you looking for? And more importantly, what were you not looking for in a solution?
We weren't looking for a solution. So let's explain like it's much easier for me to tell you what we weren't looking for than what we were looking for, because a lot of these solutions do very similar things, between robotics and software and whatnot. What we weren't looking for is a solution that dictated what our process was, that locked us in a flow that wasn't going to work for our client's operation. And it was very challenging to find what I would say are the perfect partners, because there's a lot of noise out there in the solutions market for logistics providers and for brands, a lot of noise. And so finding the signal within that noise was the challenge in it of itself. So we interviewed with countless robotics and software and carriers and solutions. And after a long and exhaustive search, we landed on a few incredible partners. So Locus is one of those partners. Tension Automation, that's for the automated packaging robotics. DePosco is the WMS. They're incredible to work with. And our carrier partners are great. Some of the apps that our brands use in e-commerce, like Loop, is incredible. We work with great ERP partners, like Good Day is a new one out there on the market. And when you put all of these pieces together, you make just a really great environment that people like working with every day, from the supply chain perspective and from the brands that we work with.
So you've said that labor challenges are often just a symptom, not the root cause. Can you unpack that for us a little bit?
Yeah, so if you take a step back and look at really what's the problem you're trying to solve. So what we found was if the line design is bad, adding people just adds to the chaos. And so what we did was we focused on what is the flow? How do we fix the flow? How do we improve the flow? How do we make the perfect flow that allows us to just automate and put on autopilot the standard part of the business? What does that mean? That means that all throughout our flow, we've introduced scans, conveyance, upfront logic like during order waiving and picking. And what we found is when we do that, the labor requirements stabilize. And so I wouldn't say we solved the labor problem. I would say that we removed all aspects of friction so that the human-based team can perform in tandem with our robotics at exceptional volume and scale with little to no friction.
So you've talked a little bit about exceptions, and tell me a little bit more about your mantra of turning exceptions into exceptional experiences for your customers.
So we automate the standard. So all aspects that you would call standard pieces of the operation, we've automated. We did that so that we can own the edge cases. It's a VIP order we've got to ship out right now. We can do that. This is an order that needs to go to a celebrity here in LA. Can we get it there in less than 100 minutes? Okay, that's fine. We have tight cutoffs that we need to meet. Yesterday, I was out there on the floor and we had the next day our pickup was, the driver was pulling into the fulfillment center and we were able to go get one last order onto that truck that had just come in like 10 minutes ago. And so all of these things matter because we surprise and delight customers. So these are customers that are creating an order and they're seeing their tracking number get back to them in like an hour or two. And so this is, in some cases, this is faster than they can even make changes to the order. And so for us at Scale 3PL, exceptions aren't fires anymore. No more fire drills. For us, and we tell the team, these are chances to win additional loyalty and trust with our brands. And we can do that because the rest of the system's not melting down as we're operating.
So that leads into this question. Can you share an example of how your operations changed once automation was in place?
Yeah, so I'll give two practical examples. So from the brand's perspective, so that's our client, from the brand's perspective, we have been told that their customer service inquiries, where's my order? This was damaged in transit. Those complaints have just dramatically decreased after they've moved to Scale 3PL from maybe another provider, or maybe they're running their own operation. And so a few things we've done to get to that point include like the tamper resistant C-fold material we use on our automated packaging line. And so that means we're sealing orders with, it's like a 400-degree blade that you can't tamper with it. So with some of these mailers, you see like a little bit loose sticky on those. And so a little easy for some fingers to grab some product in there, or maybe fall out during transit or whatnot. So our mailers actually survive the chaos of carrier networks when they're being transported on planes and trucks. Yeah, the second most practical feedback I've gotten has been on shipping costs. For us, we introduced a legal for trade scale. That means that it's the same scale that carriers use, and it's accepted internationally to be accurate. And I'm talking about like this can measure down to the weight of a toothpick. And so we're not spending any extra cost with carriers, and nor are our brands. We have also on the line dimensional cameras that are scanning with length, width, and height. So we can tell like exactly how much volume that package has. And then towards the end of the line, there's a sortation that looks at that package and says, for validation, this is a package that was packed for Mary, and it has a shipping label for Mary. It's going to UPS, and so it'll automatically sort down this conveyor to a UPS area. If you had been selected for the lowest cost with DHL, it would have routed to a different area in the pack out station. And so all of this matters to our brands because this is real dollars that go back to the brand, not to carriers. And so our clients can reinvest in their brand, grow their brand. And so it's a great situation for all of us.
So looking back, what's one decision in your automation journey that you're especially glad you made?
Yeah, one decision that we made early on that was integral to all other subsequent decisions for us was starting with what does our client need and expect? Because everything else after that initial question should fold up and answer, how does this change the experience of being a client at Scale 3PL? And if it doesn't answer that question satisfactorily, we're asking the wrong question. One example I'll give you is our clients demanded perfection, and I don't blame them in this environment. There's a lot of competition. There's billions of packages going out there. And so to stay relevant and to keep trust with their customers, like our brands demand perfection, and it's what we deliver every day that we come into the fulfillment center. We want to ship every order we get. We want to pick every order we get, pack it correctly. We want to ship it at an economical rate. And we want to do all of this in a scalable way so we can grow without being held back by that friction.
So what advice would you give to other warehouse leaders who are just beginning to think about automation, especially when it comes to choosing the right partner and what they should avoid?
Take the table stakes and put them to the side. The table stakes are we need a partner where we get the ROI, where we have access to support. All of those are table stakes. So put those in a list of their own. Create a list and start with your customer and say, these are the things that are important to my customer. The ROI will follow. The cost will follow, but start with your customer, because the last thing you want to do is put in an automation in place that costs a lot, that's hard to use, that it doesn't solve your problem, which is delivering a good experience to your customer. And so on your customer list, I would say you got to write down your non-negotiables. So what is non-negotiable for your operation, for your customer? It has to be accurate. We have to have the throughput. We have a particular go live date. So those are like logistical non-negotiables. And for whoever you're interviewing with, robotics, Locus, Tension, like all of these partners I mentioned, make sure that they help you prove it or validate it before you're signing with it. And then I guess a second piece of advice is avoid situations where you're building the business on top of customizations and locked in projects. So if you can't change something without submitting a ticket, keep shopping, move on.
That's great advice. So as you look at the next few years, what excites you most about the role that automation is going to play or plays in the 3PL space?
I love seeing how quickly this whole industry is innovating. What we're seeing is orchestration that's predictive, not reactive. And with the addition of what we're seeing in the market for intelligence applications and how those will impact what we as humans do out there on the floor with labor planning, staying ahead of expected volume that's coming down, slotting where we're putting product away, tighter carrier logic during packing. All of these things we're going to play well with as humans and software. And so this entire industry is going to need to change from a almost guesswork spreadsheet reactive spirit of logistics into how can we work with accurate, predictable forecast projections and volumes. And ultimately, those who are capable of doing that on the supply chain side, we're going to have fewer touches, we're going to have less surprises, we're going to have better margins, which will in turn allow us to provide a better experience to our customer.
If there's one message you'd want listeners to take away about scaling their warehouse operations and customer experience, what would it be?
One piece of advice I would give to the logistics providers listening, the brands listening, to everyone else listening is figure it out and figure it out right now, because there is a surge of urgency that's happening in this industry that if you aren't taking it seriously, you will fall behind. And the practical advice on this is automate the standard. Put it on autopilot, the core portion of your business. Elevate the exceptions. Make those exceptions exceptional experience for your clients. This is how you scale without burning your team, without upsetting your clients. And this is how we'll survive this surge of demand that we're facing.
And thank you, Adam, for being on the podcast today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mary. It was great chatting with you.
It was great chatting with you too. And thanks as always to our listeners. We're here to help you move what matters in your warehouse with unmatched flexibility and unlimited throughput.